All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. The discussion starts now. Is the country heading in the right direction or the wrong direction? We'd like to hear from you at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. We'll sample some of your views in just a bit. My guest already with me in studio, Honorable Irene Mayaka, nominated Member of Parliament. Thank you for making time. Frederick Okango, Secretary Political Affairs, Azimio. Asante sana for making time. Anthony Ngeru, Head of Communications Research at UDA. Thank you very much for making time. We're still waiting for Maliba Arnold Nyajai, Strategic Communication Advisor, UDA. As soon as he comes in, we'll just rope him into the discussion. But before we get into that main conversation, let's take a look at the dailies. Standard, the front page, despairs doctors harden their strike stand. Kenya Medical Association warns that private doctors will join their colleagues in the next 7 days if the government does not address the strike. However, state officials say they must return to work for their issues to be resolved. KMPD, on the other hand, says that they can return to the negotiation table without conditions. And Honorable Mayaka, who is wrong in this standoff?
Thank you, Trevor, for having us this morning. I think, for me, the government is actually wrong because, first of all, the doctors are not even starting fresh negotiations. Their strike is based on an agreement that was already done in 2017. And therefore, the government cannot be the ones that tell them to take a step back before they come to the negotiation table. Because what they are actually complaining about, the issues are raising are very vital issues. For example, you cannot decide to reduce someone's salary from what they've already been used to, because that automatically affects their cost of living. It automatically affects their life. So I actually think that the government needs to take it slow. And even these conversations that they've begun, that they will bring on board new doctors and that sort of thing, we already don't have enough doctors as it is as a country. So I just want to urge the government to not to chest thumb, so to speak, with this matter, but just go into that negotiation table, because we are almost due for the next negotiations. So don't treat doctors like you're treating people who don't know what they want. Okay. Yeah.
Okango, who should be the bigger person here? The government or the KMPD officials?
Thank you, Trevor. First of all, it is important to note, Trevor, that this doctor strike that is now going into its 29th day, or 30th, if I'm not wrong,
30th,
has exposed the government's ineffectiveness to deal with issues of healthcare. It has also exposed the incompetency at the leadership of the ministry in dealing with the doctor strike. But most importantly, it has exposed the incompetency of the Kenya Kwanza government to deal with the concerns of the ordinary people. When the doctors are on the strike, the person who suffers most are the common person who goes to the public hospitals. We are told that there could be people who have died as a result of the absence of doctors to attend to them. We are told of mothers who have delivered on the floor of the hospital because there are no doctors. We are told of people who have walked distances to look for Medicare in private hospitals, never mind at a time when the economy is doing so bad and they don't have the money. And we're also told of people with terminal illness that cannot be addressed because of lack of doctors. Now, the biggest person that must come and climb down is the government of the Republic of Kenya. When the doctors signed a collective bargain agreement, it was a legal document signed by the government of Kenya, deposited by the courts, and therefore it means that it's a valid document. If there are one or two reasons as to why that document cannot be implemented, then they should at most review it. But look, when the doctors went to the negotiating table, the government made conditions, including as late as 2 days ago, that for you to be listened to now, then you must stop the strike.
Which is part of a court order.
Which is part of a court order, I agree, but what are the issues that are being raised? What is more important today, Trevor? Is it the life of the people who are at stake, who cannot get Medicare, or is it the fact that the government of the day believes that this collective bargain agreement is not implementable? In my view, if you ask me, the people of Kenya who are demonstrating are doctors. They live in this country. They have also relatives who are, looking for this Medicare. They should be listened to because they have a right to be listened to. But I'm happy that the government of the day is actually seeing the sense that even though the issues that were put in the collective bargain agreement are as tough to implement as they are, they should listen to the doctors.
Okay.
What they are waiting for is how far the doctors can go. The doctors have told them it is the government on strike.
Yeah.
They join them in the strike. And therefore, when the government stops the strike, they can sit and negotiate.
Okay.
I want to ask them to listen to what my coalition party leader said, Raila Amolo Odinga. He has appealed to both sides because he understands the issue here that, it's a grave issue.
Yeah.
We want to see, particularly for us from Azimio, a situation where normalcy returns. Mm-hmm. And the most important thing is not about the money. The most important thing is, is the government able to agree with the doctors that this collective bargain agreement was signed and they can even implement it in whatever phases they want?
Yeah.
Raila Odinga has told them, let them meet in the middle. Meet in the middle, but restore the 206,000 that was being paid to the interns. Because to them, interns are like any other interns. The intern doctors, what we are told and what we have seen, they are not the ordinary interns. These are people who have gone to school for over 5 years. In fact, they make part of the majority of the people who offer medical services in level 4.
Okay.
They are actually doctors who are qualified. But we're being told, these are interns, you should get 70,000. We're also being told by the president, live within your means. At a time when the government itself is living large, like they have all the money. They said the economy has improved. Then when the doctors come and ask for money, because it's them who say it, they're telling us, the economy is not very well, so let's live within our means. I think the government should be the bigger person here, climb down from your horses, listen to the doctors, but remember, the people of Kenya are dying as a result of this stalemate.
Okay, Ngeru, who should blink first?
Thank you for having me here today, Trevor. And first of all, I want to acknowledge the kind of work that all the doctors are doing in Kenya, and also to take time to sympathize with those who are affected with this strike. And what I would say about this issue is definitely the government is a little bit hard-pressed in terms of spending. And when you look at the amount of revenue that we receive on an annual basis, we receive approximately 1.1 trillion from revenue collections. No, 2.2 trillion, and we spend 1.1 trillion in paying salaries, which is 47% of our revenue collection. And according to the Constitution, we're only supposed to give 35% of that. And I do agree with what Okango has said in terms of reviewing what we had agreed in 2017, because the government spokesman was quite clear that the CBA was signed under duress. And why was he saying this? The CBA took effect in July 1st, 2017, and these were political promises that were given. And Trevor, we have to be very realistic in how we are handling this issue. Of course, the labor courts gave an order, and the current strike is illegal because you get the sense that doctors are essential workers. And personally, I have a health background and I do resonate with them. However, we have to be realistic because there are a lot of people who are suffering out there, and the government has been very open and clear. Yesterday, the head of public service was quite categorical. When the doctors cease their strike, within 24 hours, they'll sit down and they'll have that discussion.
So you think the doctors should climb down from the high horse first?
Well,
not the government. It
shouldn't be like one. It should be a two-way discussion. Okay. It doesn't have to be like one person has to. You have to. Yeah.
Okay. Maliba, who should climb down from the high horse first? Is it the doctors or the government?
I think this should not be a question of climbing down, because in the middle is actually the patients and Kenyans who are actually suffering. And suffice to say that doctors raise serious issues, pertinent. No one is belittling those particular issues. We do appreciate, and it's not a matter of sympathizing, but we need to acknowledge that some of the issues they raise are important and pertinent. Equally, the government is raising issues that if you listened to and checked out, you realize that they actually are also serious. They are also pertinent. Let's start from where it is. So, we are at a place, first of all, where we do not have a doctor strike. As far as I know, I think it's only clinicians who have got a legit strike. The doctors are boycotting job. They are not going to work deliberately. That is absenteeism, because we are a country, we are a democratic country with the rule of law. And the rule of law here means that when all of us approach the courts as the shrine of justice, as the last resort of everyone as an individual, is that then whatever comes out of that particular platform, whether you call it a shrine or an altar, is that all of us should respect it. What the doctors are actually encouraging is anarchy, because tomorrow, if the same doctors have got a grievance and they go to court and the government uses the same line of justification, minimizing the importance of what the justice system does, I don't think they would really like that. So doctors are actually boycotting work. They are not on strike because there is a court order. And if we can actually chuckle at that, because it's easy and it makes political bonga points. But the truth is that the next time you actually are seeking justice and somebody ignores a court order, you will actually know how serious it is.
So we ignored the court order first, because the CBA in 2017 was deposited in court. It was justified by the court. The government was supposed to implement. It never did.
Yeah.
Then the government took the doctors to court, and then now the court said that this industrial action is illegal. So who ignored the first court order?
First of all, I know it's not a language I would want to use, but the truth is that this CBA was obtained fraudulently.
But it was signed
100 days
by the government, deposited.
Look at this. The process is just as important as the outcome. Let's not beat around the bush. The CBA was obtained fraudulently. After 100 days of doctor strike, that is the first time we saw medics being taken to jail. It was so much of a law. We moralized and guilt-tripped the government of the day. They were so pushed and they were so ashamed that they were twisted into it. You will say ignorance of the law is not defense. But at that particular point, the CBA was fraudulently obtained.
Why? Because they were under duress?
Yes. Let's move on. Let's move on. There is a court order. Trevor, we cannot discuss and try to undo a court order by moralizing and getting clever around it. We are a country of the rule of law. The next day, doctors will have a grievance and go to the same court. And that court makes an order and the government does what they have done. We will say this country. By the way, respecting court orders, the rule of law does not just apply to government and the people who are elected. It is for every one of us. So let us not even discuss this thing about the court order. That is a boycott. Let us call it for what it is.
But
we know that the issues...
Look at this. The reason why I want you to clarify that is because there's another court order that compelled the government to implement the 2017 CBA. It was not done. So we ignored the first court order.
Fine. Trevor, I'll take you back. First of all, I started by acknowledging that the issues they raise are pertinent. No one is belittling those issues. Government has said that Rome was not built in a day. We can actually do them in phases. You asked about climbing down. The government is actually standing on the ground.
Now.
No, the government is actually standing on the ground. They've made offers.
In 24 hours, if you call off the strike
afterwards, those are dynamics of a negotiation. The government has actually made offers. Not once. You have been here and you've been reporting that. The government has made offers. The government has actually even put out letters. They've actually offered what they have. The doctors are not making a move. And Trevor, lest we forget this, is that we are not talking about any other people who offer services. Doctors offer essential services. Since they offer essential services, they cannot wave around the strike option like it's the first strike option. A strike option for doctors and essential services providers is like a nuclear option in war. That is not the first strike option. That is not what you prefer first. Because when they do that, and you see, even the bishops yesterday, the Catholic bishop yesterday said that, let us not use patients as a bargaining chip. Government has not refused to sit down. Government has made offers, and they are making explanations. It's easy. You know, I've heard Okango talking about the government is living large. That is reactionary for a man as experienced as him, because he knows a republic is not a function of one unit. That there is the professional end. We have got so many other ends to balance. And we are telling you that most of these actually asks they are making have got a fiscal implication to it. That fiscal implication speaks to a budget. It speaks about resources that, number one, we do not have. We are just emerging from a dire debt situation. We've just started to balance our macros. So when we want to then stabilize the country, we are here doing what essentially is a sabotage to the universal healthcare.
Okay.
We've not even moved from NHIF platform properly to the SHIF. So as we move to the new platform, we can get around. But you see, why did, for example, Okango was in the last government when this CBA was being signed. Why didn't you, for example, honor that? And now you are here speaking so loudly about this with a lot of confidence, as if this CBA was signed by this particular administration. It is because he knows that that particular CBA's ask was difficult. Okay. There's a reason why it was not achieved then, and those reasons have not magically changed because we have got Kenya Kwanza in place.
Okay.
So, from where we sit,
yeah,
doctors should stop being bullies. They should also have empathy.
Okay.
We understand where they are coming from, and no one is belittling it. No one is belittling their issues. It's not a matter of anyone winning an argument here, because if we're going to win an argument here, but at what cost? Okay. The people who are dying on the ground. Okay. At what cost? A dysfunctional healthcare.
All right.
And Trevor, I know you spoke to them here, both guys from MOH and the doctors, KPMDU.
KMPDU, yes.
You know, the arguments they make are legit, but we are looking at the numbers that have grown. Yeah. Even as our education sector, we have got lesser doctors. Yes, we agree. Clinicians are even much less. But then if we use this as an MO, if this is how we are going to operate, then we are not going to move.
Okay.
A little bit of level-headedness. And I will say this again with a little bit of caution, that what we see here, specifically in the medical sector, is weak leadership in the unions.
And not the government.
I'm talking about the government has got its own. We already have spoken about signing a CBA under duress.
Yeah.
That was a sign of weakness. Okay. But I'm also telling you, using this, there are so many ways of actually pushing this to actually work. Okay. By the time you put your client to risk, it means that the kind of union leaders we now have in the medical sector are actually weak, and for them they use the ultimate weapon, that is the nuclear option. Okay. And they don't care about it because it's easy.
I think Trevor, let me just jump in on this, because first of all, we cannot call the argument fraudulent, because when you call the argument fraudulent, it's tantamount to saying that the courts actually agreed to a documentation that was not even legitimate, and that's bringing a question to the court order. But then again, Trevor, we're dealing with a government that has ignored court orders, and we're well aware of it. Like, for example, the housing levy. When the court stopped the housing levy, the government should have stopped the deductions, but they didn't. So they ignored. Again, this habit that the Kenya Kwanza administration has of shifting blame and bringing excuses about the previous administration just needs to stop. The CBA was signed in July of 2017 between the government and the doctors. You cannot come back. I mean, this is an agreement that was signed that interns will be paid 206,000. Then the current administration wants to pay them. They're actually saying between 47,000 to 70,000. That is, first of all, totally unfair. The doctors have made it very clear, and the statistics are there, and Okango alluded to the same, that majority of the interns are the people who take care of the level 4 hospitals. Level 4 hospitals are the hospitals that majority of Kenyans actually go to. So it would be very unfair of us to sit here and say that the doctors are being unfair, that they have a weak union. I actually think the doctors are doing a great thing, and if I were them, I would actually continue to have the grandstand that they're having. Because if they don't do this, if they don't ensure that they are protecting and standing for their colleagues, then who else will do that?
Okay.
Nobody else will do that. We've tried speaking about the doctor strike in Parliament, and we've had situations where the debates have been stifled. Just yesterday, our senior member, Dr. Nyekal, wanted to bring on board an adjournment motion, and the presiding speaker ensured that that did not happen. So we were not even able to discuss the doctor strike. So the doctors have literally been left on their own to fight for this. And the government is not playing ball.
Okay.
The government is actually giving us excuses because, I mean, the government is about to actually employ CASES, chief administrative secretaries, and yet they're saying they have an overloaded wage bill. So where are they going to get money to pay CASES if they're not able to take care of doctors? How come the government was able to actually increase the budget towards State House, the budget towards the Deputy President's office, the budget for the First Ladies, and yet they're saying there's no money to take care of doctors? This is a priority area, and they just need to take care of it. And again, I'm just telling the doctors, continue with your grandstand until this issue is actually resolved.
All right, Okago.
You know, Trevor, it's very interesting how Madiba accuses me of being in the last game because of my association with my coalition leader, Raila Odinga, who was a friend to Uhuru Kenyatta, and Uhuru Kenyatta was the president, and who was Uhuru Kenyatta's principal assistant, President William Ruto, who is Arnold Maliba's boss at UDA. And he knows that William Ruto knew about this agreement. But what hurt Kenyans most is Arnold's words of fraudulent collective bargain agreement. Fraudulent. That agreement was signed by government officials. The CS minister, or CS Health, was there. And a CS is a person who takes, first of all, individual responsibility, then collective responsibility to the president of the day, who was assisted by President William Ruto at that time. Number two, he says that the government is standing on the ground. So it is the doctors' union who are happier that should come down. I want to tell Arnold and the UDA team that the doctors are actually lying on the ground. They are helpless. They have no money. They have nowhere to go. They are crying. Read the placards. They are even saying that, please, listen to us. Those are people who are helpless. So if the government is standing on the ground, it's actually the government standing on top of the doctors. That's what we are saying. But most importantly, the court recently gave them up to 17th April, I think. I want to believe, Trevor, that in the next few days, the government, while they are standing on doctors, as Arnold says, they will have realized that the more they stand on the doctors, the more they tell them that we are not going to listen to you until you call off the strike, the more they tell them that the interns, you are not worth earning 200,000 as before, but you are worth 45,000, the more they tell them that you must go back and tell us what you want, then we meet, the more Kenyans will die, the more Kenyans will suffer. We are going to break the healthcare system in this country if this strike continues. And that's why, from our end, we acknowledge that the strike is not good for anyone. It is not good for the doctors, neither is it good for the for the public, neither is it's good for the union. We are asking them, and let me use the diplomatic language that Raila Odinga used. We are appealing to President William Ruto and Kenya Kwanza government, please meet the doctors in the middle in the collective bargain agreement. But most importantly, try and restore the initial remuneration so that these doctors can wake up from the ground where they are lying, you can step aside from where you are standing on them, and let's move forward. Because we value the health as a right. People are missing their rights.
Okay.
Right now, Trevor.
All right. Geru, you know,
yes.
The reason why I keep saying that who should blink first and who should climb down from the high horse is because of the conditions that both sides are giving. KMPDU side says if it's not implemented in full, they're not doing anything. Government says you have to call off your strike fast so that we sit down. Where is the middle ground? Because here, it seems like the government is the one holding the cake and the knife. They can decide and say, okay, fine, this is the return to work formula. We are operating within a fiscal space that is constrained. We acknowledge that. So this is what we can do as a return to work formula. Let's even stagger it then. let's pay you in bits. Why is that so difficult to do?
Well, Trevor, thank you for that. First of all, I'd say that there's a lot of stone throwing that is aimed towards the government. But I'd also want to challenge the doctors to also get their act together, because even when you look at some of the issues that have been brought forward, of course, when you look at their remuneration, there's the issue of the 206,000. And when you see some of the allowances that they claim that they want to be paid, you see, like, it's a global practice for doctors to undergo internship so that they can be fully certified. Because after a doctor leaves college immediately, they're not licensed to practice until they go through the mandatory internship program, because they do not have the technical or the capacity to have that physical contact with the patients, and they cannot also start a clinic. And if you look at our hospitals out there, when you look at the emergency section of the hospital, interns are not supposed to handle that. But if you look at the hospitals currently, it is common practice for them to do that. There's also the issue of non-practice allowance. Like I said before, doctors are not yet, interns are not yet licensed. So why do they have that, like being, how can I put it, like they
need an allowance or something.
They need an allowance towards that.
Yeah, for something they're not qualified for.
Yes. So I would also want to challenge the doctors to get their act together. Yeah. Like I said before, the government is very open to dialogue, and it's not a matter of who has to, tone down for the other. But whatever we do, we have to do it for the sake of our patients.
Okay. Yeah. Arnold, we'll close this one for us so that we move on to another topic. So, what is the end to this? How does the end? What is the solution now? Everyone is just thumping.
I don't think everybody's just jumping. It's just thumping, because government has made offers. It's made training, payment. It's even given a schedule. It's made some progress where letters were even offered. They said, let us meet at this particular level. When you're talking about let us meet in the middle, I would love anybody to show me even one step that the doctors have done. If we're talking about climbing down and reducing the space, the distance between these two grandstanding ends, doctors have not made any move. For them, it's one militant position. And I also think that the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga needs to call his leaders and probably do a retreat so that then they level up. If you listened to the Right Prime Minister yesterday, he was conciliatory, statesmanly. He did everything in a way that actually would help this particular situation. But when you listen to Okango here, Okango is still in the streets, holding placards here, talking about as in there's need of a leveling up in that particular house. There's a little bit of housekeeping. Two, Mheshimiwa here says that doctors should not budge. Kenyans, here is the person who sits in the house. This is your voice. And by then you should drop that word nominated. These guys are elected. The nomination is just the process of election. So a lot of times we try to make that nominated thing look like it's special and different. They are elected. It's a type of election. So this one here, seated here, is the person who sits at a place where you should be represented. Behold, she says that doctors should not change their bit. There should be no goodwill. There should be no voice of reason. They should hold on there. And she has said that people are dying. We are having difficulties. But she says that should persist. Just because she's in opposition to the government of the day, that should be the position. I think that is reckless. The other thing is that they spoke about the role of courts in registering CBA. If you were to look at the role of the court in registering as the CBA, is that you show up and you say, this is what we have agreed upon. And then the court just registers it. It's not like the court validates it. It's a matter of, like, when you go to the register of political parties, they don't do so much. They are just a registry. You take the members you have registered on the ground, and once they look at it, they keep it for you. They bring in all the documents and everything else. So you said, where do we end up with this? Easy and reactionary responses like we are employing CASs, we are living large, are quite, I would say, not really well thought out. There is a notion in this country, for example, that MPs, Parliament gets a lot of money. I will tell you that is about 38 to 40 billion shillings, right? If you were to compare that to the 3.8 or 7 trillion that we have, you realize it's about 2.83. I will sit down and calculate that, but I will tell you it doesn't go beyond 4% of the budget. Even if you were to do away with all that budget, for example, and took care to these, some of what they call priority areas, you will realize that money is not enough. Let's say that we erase parliament. So, what did I say? I said that a republic is not a function of one unit. There are so many other areas that you actually have to balance. Okay. You have to balance the economy, you have to balance the social end, you have to balance the political end. So the issue of doctors is a serious one. The issue of the healthcare sector is a serious one. But we will not be reactionary. We will not deal with it the way we are doing at the moment. Okay. When I said that the doctors are actually sitting down, Okango, of course, reached out with a cheap spin and talked about the doctors are lying prostrate and the government is standing on them. You know, those kindergarten kind of lines are what really makes this country progressing very difficult. You see, government has made offers. You asked a very rational question, Trevor. The question is, who should blink first? Meaning that somebody has to actually be the bigger person in this particular room. Government has been big all along in this particular situation, even with the hard situation that we are in. Okay. But what are we doing? Have you looked at the disrespectful placards they are carrying? Of course, there's freedom of speech. It's fine. We justify that, we chuckle at that, but that is a culture we actually are embedding and moving forward. So from where I sit, I think that the leaders, the doctors' leaders must be leaders. Okay. Otherwise, what we see here are just cantankerous individuals who actually are bereft of proper leadership. Because, honestly, how do they make progress? Or they want to become martyrs like the first 100 days doctor strike, the ones that ended up in court.
All right, I have to take a quick commercial break, but I know, Irene, you've been mentioned adversely, so I'll give you a chance to respond after that.
I actually have mentioned this one adversely. Okango here, adversely.
I'll give you a chance when you come back so that for rebuttal, then we get into the conversation that we're supposed to have. Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. When we come back, we discuss the issue of whether the government is heading in the right direction or the wrong direction, right after the right of reply by Mayaka and Okango on this doctor's strike issue. All right, see you in just a bit.